How did the medieval era inspire and inform C.S. Lewis? In some really basic ways, some examples would be their love and regard for written tradition, which deeply influenced the ways that Lewis thought and lived. Their way of bringing reason and imagination together and valuing both really energized Lewis, and he took that over into his own life and thought. And then I think the holism with which they treated life, bringing together, again, the spiritual and the material. Medievals easily spoke in one breath of the great universals like friendship and honor and justice, and in the very next breath of earthy particulars such as pigs, boots, and boats. That's actually Lewis's language from the 16th century literature book that he wrote. So it was an interwovenness, an interpenetration. They did not hold church and theology over here and material life and cultural life over here. It was all one for them. And Lewis really drew on that. And I think if you read him, you'll see that kind of unity and seamlessness in his own work as well. This seamlessness and integrity in Lewis's writing comes from a medieval concept called sacramentality, which is an understanding that every aspect of the world in our lives is potentially a place where we can meet God. And where that's anchored for medievals, and for Lewis as well, is in a rich understanding of the incarnation, that the greatest universal of them all, God himself, came down into those very earthy particulars of birth in a cold, dark, perhaps dirty stable, of life, suffering, the kinds of sufferings that we do, and ultimately death on a cross, walking the dusty roads, ministering with his hands on to those who are sick. And all of those things verify and justify an understanding of the whole world as an arena of God's activity. Because in the incarnation, it really was. That was a deep understanding for Lewis, and it was also a deep medieval understanding that can help us. I argue in the book that C.S. Lewis was not just a scholarly medievalist, but also an intuitive medievalist. He came to see the modern world through medieval eyes in some senses. He claimed that himself as he addressed the Cambridge University audience when he became the professor of medieval and Renaissance studies there in the early 50s. And he said, "I'm a dinosaur. I'm a representative of a past era. Make the most of me while you can." And he really was. He was a person who passed on the traditions of the past and of medieval understanding. So we can then read over his shoulder as he reads Boethius and Francis of Assisi, Thomas Aquinas, Julian of Norwich, reads the Canterbury Tales, reads Dante's Divine Comedy. And we can see through those eyes that were so attuned to those earlier times, the wisdom and the knowledge and the ways of seeing the world that can enrich our own.